If you or somebody you know is considering intermittent fasting as a way of losing weight, living a healthy life, reducing your risk of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, and struggling to know where to start or how it works, then watch this. This would be a typical day for many of us. We would start our day with breakfast, give a minimum of 4 to 6 hours before we have our lunch, a further minimum of 4 to 6 hours before we have dinner, and then we'd have a minimum of 12 hours before we have breakfast through the night again. The issue with this for many of us is that we snack between our meals. So we'll have a snack between breakfast and lunch and dinner, and we're constantly snacking, which means our insulin remains high throughout the day, trying to bring our glucose down. If it's successful at all in doing so, the insulin requires 3 to 4 hours to come down to a level whereby your body can change energy sources and access your fat cells for energy. So one way we can intermittently fast in order to allow our insulin levels to drop down sufficiently in order to change energy resource and access fat cells is what's known as the 4-4-12 method, which simply means the 4 to 6 hours between breakfast and lunch, you have no snacking. The 4 to 6 hours between lunch and dinner, there's no snacking. And then the minimum of 12 hours overnight before breakfast, there's no snacking. Fasting schedules can be further modified to what's known as a 16-8 method or an 18-6 method. This simply means that between your dinner and your lunch, you skip your breakfast for a minimum of 16 hours, which would then give you an 8-hour eating window for your lunch and your dinner before your fast begins again. On the 18-6 method, you just extend that period, skipping breakfast for a minimum of 18 hours, leaving you a 6-hour eating window for lunch and dinner before your fast commences again. Taking the 18-6 fasting method, we can further modify this by doing the following. So allowing for the 18 hours fasting, skipping breakfast, lunch and dinner, you have the 6-hour eating window, but 0 snacking in between that, allowing your insulin to drop again during your lunch and your dinner period. A further intermittent fasting method is what's known as the 1 meal a day method, which simply means yesterday you had your dinner, you give 20 to 23 hours to today where you have your dinner, and then a further 20 to 23 hours for tomorrow having your dinner. And this is why intermittent fasting works. As you wake up in the morning, your insulin is already low. Your body is learning to burn fat for fuel. It's reducing your risk of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. And rather than having a breakfast, if you skip your breakfast and fast, your body is learning to efficiently burn fat for fuel and further reducing your insulin resistant risks and your type 2 diabetes risk. Following your extended fast, if you introduce a soluble fibre together with your lunch, see my other videos for benefits of fibre, and then give a 4 to 6 window where your insulin is allowed to come back down again before you have your dinner, and then you commence your fast where you're burning fat again. Check out my other videos to learn more.